All right, let's start with the donut guy. Here we go. This job seeker dressed as a delivery man delivered his CV in donut boxes, which he dropped off at 40 companies, landing 10 interviews. So when you open the donut box, it says, most resumes end up in trash. Mine in your belly. Hi, this delivery is not a mistake. I pretended to be a Postmates delivery guy to ensure my resume was delivered to you personally. Here are some unconventional ways to get hired using that as inspiration. I'm going to talk through 4 themes, and then we're going to see those themes play out in specific examples, and then we'll give some broad takeaways at the end. I think the most important theme here is narrative, the story of why. The story of why you. This kid has a great story. I took time out of my day to tell it to you. You're going to probably tell it to someone else. The story you're really aiming for is when they find out about you and then they have to talk amongst themselves about why should we bring this guy in for an interview. That story's got to be solid in some way. It can't just be he has a good resume, because that's the exact same story of everyone else they have who has a good resume. The narrative is very important. The second theme is flattery, making them feel special in some way. Delivering donuts. Third is working for free. I know some of you are pissed off right at this point. However, it makes it easy for them to say yes to more. You give them some work for free. They see how you guys interact, how you communicate, how you deliver your work. It's just easier. Is it fair? Is it how the world should be? I don't know, but it works. And lastly, the last theme is embracing accountability, putting yourself on the line, really raising your hand, stepping up, getting out of your seat and saying, I'm the right person. Here's why. Some examples. I'm going to start with another one outside of tech, but I think this is really interesting. Amber Rose, I knew about her a while ago when she was dating Kanye. She says something in this interview that is so applicable to this. Let's watch.
Make a very long story short, I went back to Philly and I was like, okay, I'm a pretty girl, but all the girls are pretty that are going up there. They're all beautiful girls. How can I stand out? And I went to the barbershop and I said, just go down the middle. I don't care. Just shave this off.
Really?
Yes.
You cut all those, I'm assuming.
Yup. She was getting rejected and she went somewhere else and had an honest look at herself and was like, I'm not standing out. It's not working. What else can I do to stand out? That would be narrative. Like the story of her is she's a good looking girl with a bald head and no one else has a bald head. She seems interesting. She's different. I like different. Let's try it out. Here's an example working for free. So this was someone who I had originally worked with, and then we stopped working together. And then a year later, they sent me this whole analysis report, unprompted, because they were starting an agency and offering a higher ticket, full suite package. I just got this in my email. It breaks down my channel and kind of advice about what I should do differently, thumbnail testing, scripting, enhancing. Like, wow, look at all the detail that went into this. It was all for free. We didn't end up working together, but I would refer this person to other people, and we definitely had a follow-up meeting. Now, open source is like the version of that, working for free for someone, just putting it out there, making it easy for them to say yes or no. Here's Victor. Victor submitted a PR on the Compass Calendar repo, and it uses a closing keyword. It has a good description, which links to the issue. We have a manual test, 30-second screen recording, semantic commits. It's just a nice PR. And then Muhammad, my other teammate, says, lovely PR, appreciate the tidiness. Can you make some modifications? He does that. A couple more things. It gets merged. And then this happened for like 3 more PRs. And every time I saw Victor's name, I was like, wow, this guy's really good. And then it ended up happening that we needed a back-end engineer, and he had done some back-end work in the PRs he submitted. And he showed so much in just the free work he did that we were like, he would be great. And now we're teammates. He worked for free. He didn't get angry about it. He didn't seem entitled. It was just good work, and he made it easy for us to want to keep working with him. By the way, this is my app. It's our app. It's a open source weekly planner app that integrates with Google Calendar. It's for ambitious minimalists, especially tech people. There's a whole playlist about the app over here. But let's talk about another example. Grunt work. So manual testing, for example, even if you don't know the whole code base or you're not super advanced, you can just test on your computer for an open source repo and make sure it works for Mac. If you got a Mac, make sure it works for Windows. If you got it, you can just write tests. If they're not super high coverage for that repo, just get them a little higher. You can volunteer to look at a senior developer's repo that you meet at some event and make his life easier. Grunt work. So let's see. Open source was about embracing accountability and working for free. Grunt work would be working for free and flattery. Building in public is about embracing accountability and putting yourself on the line. I think you guys will know this, kind of inherently what this means, but here's an amazing example of a year's worth of accountability and building in public. Every single day, code was committed. Then we have an article about what happened at certain milestones. At 102 days, this happened. She got hired at 200 days, this happened. Then we got a bunch of money, then hired again. This is an awesome story. How can you not root for someone like that? How can they not show up at your inbox or in front of you at a conference, even at day 60, and say, I've been working for 60 days and I'm going to keep working for the next 360 days and I just won't stop. And you hear that as a hiring manager and you're like, wow, this person is reliable and they're going to put it on the line. I appreciate that. So you could start doing this without having to do it for a whole year. Do a tweet that says, I'm going to code every day for a year. Post it right now. And then the next 30 days, tweet out what you're doing every day. Even 30 days of consistency and accountability is pretty remarkable. They're going to look at your socials, you know that. So why not ride that wave while you're applying? Next example would be massive effort. One of the companies I work for, it was really important that we had more machine learning or AI people in-house. And so the CEO knew that we were kind of behind the other people in the industry. And so he stopped what he was doing and he just flew out to Seattle, to Austin, to other places around the world where he knew there were good AI researchers, probably at competitors. And he showed up at their house late at night and would not leave until their wife let him in. And then he made this whole pitch about why you got to work for our company's better. He really humbled himself and put everything else on hold and went through massive effort. And I know that made an impression on these guys because they were working for us a few weeks later. If the CEO is not too good for this, you are not too good for this either. This is an example of flattery. This is a narrative. So this is me at a AI researchers conference, and it was meant for AI researchers, not web developers. These guys are PhDs. Everything they said on the first day just went over my head, and they're all like, why are you here? How did they let you in? And I was like, they didn't care. They just took my money, and I showed up, and that was fine. And once they got past that, they were like, okay, this guy shouldn't be here, but he's asking questions and he's curious and he's nice to be around. And he flew across the country for this. I took massive action and I made it easy for them to want to root for me. And I got an inside look at how this world works. If some of them were hiring, I could have parlayed that into an employment opportunity. Another example would be, say you're trying to understand finance, business, or opportunities, and there's a conference for hedge fund managers. And it's really expensive because they're hedge fund managers, but you pay for it anyway. I saw one of these conferences tickets for $4,000. And if you as just an unemployed person scraping together every dollar and cent to make that trip, made that happen, they would notice that nothing's guaranteed, of course, and that might be too risky, but the narrative is there. They would say, holy cow, this junior developer, this intermediate developer took massive action and put a lot on the line to get in the same room as us so that he could talk to us. I'm going to give this guy coffee. I'm going to give him time over lunch, etc. By the way, back on the donut guy, He probably spent $400 on this. So maybe $10 a donut box, 40 companies, $400 plus a whole day of biking around. That's a lot of work. Speaking of donuts, donuts is the hack. At my first tech job, it was IT help desk for my university. Whenever you were late, the rule was you had to buy everyone donuts. So it was kind of like, why were you late? I had to pick up your calls for you. That was annoying. Oh, but you brought donuts. The takeaway I have for this, I think if there's one element that ties all this together, it's humility. Humility is the opposite of entitlement. It's accepting that you're not better than this. It's being unproblematic. When you have a take-home interview or a project, they'll usually have a set of instructions. It's just following the instructions, like reading it to a T. I asked a previous student of mine at a boot camp how he got hired while a lot of his other classmates didn't. And he said, just follow the instructions they give, leave good comments, and like have a non-arrogant naming convention for things. Now, I think you can balance this with a follow-up. If this is the 1-2, the 1 is following directions, and the 2, the knockout is I'm going to go above and beyond in some other way. So with the take-home project, here's my first commit, follow instructions exactly how you wanted. Here's my second commit, cleans up everything, does it in a nice way, fixes things you didn't even think needed fixing. It shows my style and aesthetic. So you can be humble while also being an overachiever. A lot of people say that because they don't have a job. They're humbled, but they are the most arrogant people because they think they don't need to change. Remember Amber? She was humbled. She was like, everyone's hot. I need to do something different because I guess I'm hot, but not enough. If you're hitting roadblocks with your job search, whatever you're doing, it's not enough. And so you might need to take your ego down a notch and humble yourself. Lastly, I can tell when I was teaching for boot camp which one of my students would do well or which ones wouldn't immediately. Because the ones who even were less technically skilled or had less of a background that was conducive to being a developer, but showed a capacity to win and have grit and defiance, it's more of their identity. They've honed that over the years, and I think you can too if you don't have it yet. Some people are just going to win. They're going to say, I got rejected 1,000 times. I don't care. I'm going to figure out how to do things differently and win. This brings me to one of the biggest reasons junior developers especially don't get their first job, and it's not what you think. It's related to this winning mindset. I'm going to break it all down in this video over here. Check that out. If you're struggling to find that first job or the second job, this one will help you avoid a big pitfall that I see a lot of people falling into. Thanks for watching. See you next time.